Good morning folks, and welcome to the workshop. This is a revisit, not something that I've done in relation to the stitching irons as yet, but there's a good reason I feel for it. Now, one of the first irons that I reviewed was the Tandy 2.5mm stitching iron, and it gave a reasonable account of itself. If you watch that video, I don't give it a scathing review, but I'm not enamoured by it. I think that it struggled to produce a stitch easily on its own, and this is the important thing, is it's very much a beginner's iron. These stitching irons that fully penetrate the leather take the skill and the necessity for the awl away, so therefore put the bracket of the saddle stitch into the beginner's camp very comfortably. You can produce a nice straight row of holes that go through the leather, perfectly aligned with the back, and produce a stitch. This removes an awful lot of the skill and makes leather work accessible to more people. And that's what Tandy's about. It's reaching the masses. I'll just kick everything there, sorry. But you had to have a level of skill to achieve a reasonable stitch with it. I think the angle of the tooth, the size of the tooth, and the fact that they were so close together were working against the person making the stitch. So I was honest, I gave that account. However, recently a student arrived with exactly the same iron, but this time in 3.5mm. I was compelled to have a go, so I did, and I was pleased with the results. I thought that for that SPI, for the distance between the teeth, it gave a far better account of itself. In addition to that, one of the bones of contention I had with that particular iron is there was no two-tooth option. I know you can heal an iron, and I've shown you how to heal an iron in different videos, but nonetheless the two-tooth option is invaluable if you're going round curves or trying to stitch a certain shape. They've added that now, which is brilliant. So I think it wouldn't be fair for me to leave people with the view of that one iron, because the information's a little incorrect now. So we're doing a revisit, and we're going to look at the 3.5mm Tandy stitching iron with the two-prong option. I'm not necessarily going to use the two-prong, but we'll have a look at it, and you can have my thoughts and feelings on that. So let's go down to the log and look at the iron itself. So here we have how the irons come, and this is the first iron that I reviewed, the 2.5mm. The teeth aren't dissimilar in size. The 3.5mm teeth are a little larger, but not much whilst they appear on the face, and we'll take it out of the packets because this is how they come, and then we can do a direct parallel. Whilst we can see more surface of steel here, the tooth itself remains very similar to its counterpart size. The width of the tooth is 2.9mm, so it's almost 3mm, so it's comparable to many of the others that we've looked at. That's still a chunky hole, still very much a chunky hole. The length of the tool is the same, the length of the tooth is the same, the SPI is different, but the addition of the two-prong is a huge boon. Look at that. So now you can have a set to do your normal stitching and go round corners as well. Now, this tool at the moment is available from Tandy, and depending on your level of membership, if you're just a customer going along, you could pay up to £44 for it. If you're an elite member, you can pay as little as £25 for it, which in the grand scheme of things for something like this, that's not bad. The fit and finish, the look of the tool, it's stainless steel, it's a nice finish, it's brushed steel, it's got the logo engraved on it with the information. The same issue as the last time, the inside of the tooth is rough. That's going to bind on the leather all day long. That's not a difficult fix. We've had a look at the crimson hides, and they are exceptionally well polished. They go in, come out, an absolute dream. But there's an awful lot more work to polishing the tines or the teeth, so therefore you're going to pay a premium for that. That's not a premium you're paying here, and it's not a difficult fix to do yourself. So what we're going to do is, I'm not going to beat about the bush, I'm going to go straight to the point, and let's have a look at how it works, because that's what we want to see. So, as norm, we'll stick a stitch line down. Let's get rid of these two for now, because we've done the 2.5 and I'm not going to do the 2 tooth. I just want you to know that's option. Now again, these teeth go to a point, and that point is centered, and at this point the width of that tooth is 1.3 mil, so it's nice and narrow. It's 2.9 mil wide, so that's the size hole that we're going to get, and we're going to give it a thump, and that goes in an absolute dream. Nice penetration. These teeth are exactly the same width from just above the shoulder of the tip all the way to the body, so however deep you go in, that's the size hole you're getting. So okay, that doesn't want to come out. Block of wood, press down with the wood, push up with the iron, it comes out. It's a bit of a bind. It goes in a dream, and it's not difficult. Get the piece of wood working for you, and it works. It is a bit of a tug. Right, I'm fighting that. It works, but it's difficult. What I'm going to do, I mean, okay, we're arguing the point, but look at that row of holes. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. Right, I'm going to finish this line, I'm going to stitch it, and then what I'm going to do, I'm going to polish it, because I'm curious. Right, there's a row stitching. Let's take that straight to the clam, let's stitch it, and then we can revisit how we can make this tool a little better by polishing the teeth. But let's see how it stitches first. So, we're ready to go. I have John James number 4, 0.6 bonded polyester. It's yellow, so it gives you a good indication of what the stitch looks like. It makes it nice and clear. Now, yes, putting the iron in was easy, pulling it out was difficult, and we can get really picky about that and say, well, the tool's no good because it's difficult to use, and so on and so forth. I think you'll find pretty much most of the awls that you buy, the top end awls, the Osborne awls, the John James awls, the awls that Dixon's used to sell when they were about, even the awls from Abbey, need polishing. There are very few awls that you can buy of a reasonable price that will work straight out the box. Yes, you can pay a lot of money for some of the awls. I mean, you look at the Douglas awls, you look at some of these awls from Japan, they come highly polished, but you will pay a premium for that level of work. You're not paying that premium here, and the tool needs to be polished up. You look at the quality of the old Dixon's irons, and bearing in mind they were industry standard, they were shocking. We're getting lost on all these lovely irons that are coming out, and there are some lovely irons. I mean, you're looking at Crimson Hide, Amy Rourke, and there are a few others coming out of Japan that are absolutely stunning. But you will pay for those. These, if you have Elite membership, then you're looking at 25 quid. That's not expensive. If you don't have Elite membership and you go straight into it, you're looking at 44 quid. That's still not too bad. With a little bit of work, we're going to have a look and see if we can make this tool just slightly better. And we're not getting hung up on this rough tooth, because the more you use it, it will begin to soften up anyway. Like any tool, the leather will begin to polish it the more you smack it in to it. So we've got to keep it relative. The question that we need to ask is, what does it stitch like? Can we achieve a reasonable quality saddle stitch out of the box? And this is out of the box. This is no messing about with it. I haven't done any polishing. This is how it came to me. And I am just running a row of stitching, doing a standard stitch. There's no cast, nothing to emphasise the angle of the stitch at all. I am just letting the tool do all the work. Hopefully the angle of that hole will set the thread at the right angle, and as always I'm looking at the edge of the piece of leather. I can't see the quality of the stitch as yet. You can see better than I can, so let's see if I get a nice surprise. I'm rather hoping I do. Certainly haven't tried the one that David brought with him. I was pleasantly surprised over the 2.5mm. I thought the 3.5 get a far better account of itself. So let's trim all that off, change the glasses, let's have a look. Let me have a look. Well, that's not bad. That's not bad at all. Straight out of the box. Yes, a little rough. But can we live with that? Of course we can live with that. That's the back. It's shallow. Oh, we're going a little closer. But there is an angle to it. If that was the back of your item, you wouldn't be disappointed. Let's tap it down and have a look. Let's present it the best way that we can. Give it a rub, get rid of the wax. Well, there we go. Speaks for itself, doesn't it? Straight out of the box, no messing about. And that's what you get. That's a beginner's iron. You can learn with that iron, and you can continue on with it into a reasonably ambitious intermediate stage. It depends what you make. Again, I will advocate that if you're going to do fine stitching, if you're going to do good quality handmade items, then you want to be looking at the saddle stitch done with a pricking iron and an awl. The hole wants to be as small as possible so it grips that thread and you get a tighter bond. However, the hole is closing up. That's come out rather nice. I'm going to do a second row of stitching. I'm going to do a cast on it to try and overemphasise it to see if that has an impact, because the teeth are still a little shallow. I'd possibly like to see them at a greater angle, but nonetheless, that being said, it still works. However, we were fighting. It was difficult to get in and out. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take it to the polishing mop. I'm going to do it on video so you can see, and let's have a look at tidying up the inside of these teeth. Okay, I'm not going to keep you on video for long doing this because it's going to be noisy, but all I'm going to do is got a cotton mop. I have some rouge. I'm going to switch it on, and then I'm going to polish the teeth. There we go. Just a couple of minutes on the polishing mop. I could go further. It's not polished the inside amazingly, however, it's taken an awful lot off, and we can, we get in there with a bit of wet and dry and spend some time polishing those down like we do, and all takes a couple of hours. I've done this 3 minutes, but I've given it a go. I've also got a bit of beeswax here, so let's do a line there, and let's put that into the beeswax. And then let's try again. Proof of the pudding type thing. I think we're in the wrong place there. Line it up. We're in. We're through. A lot easier. Probably will still use the wood. And the reason for that is iron straight in, straight out. But that's coming out an awful lot easier. I'm happy with that. So if I spent even more time on that iron, it would work nicely for me. So yeah, we can spend a premium on highly polished teeth, but just giving this a lick on the mop. Let's just give that a bit of a tidy up because I've got beeswax all over it. Just giving that a little bit of a lick on the mop has made a huge difference. Many tools need a little bit of tweaking and a little bit of care before they work at their optimum. This is no different. It's not an expensive tool. It's not an advanced tool. You can learn how to stitch with it, but if you spend a bit of time, they're easy to get in between. Give them a polish up. Once you've polished them up, it will slide in and slide out. We've already seen it can give us a good row of stitching, and we're going to have a look again at the stitch, but this time I'm going to put a cast on there to see if we can emphasize it any more. The angle of the tooth is quite shallow. I think it's about 33 degrees or something like that. That might not let it sit up as high as I would like, but we'll give it a go and we'll find out. See what we think. Let's go to the clam and have a look. So we're set up. I have number 4 John Jones needles and 0.6mm bonded polyester tiger thread. Yellow so you can see it. And I'm going to now add a cast to the stitch. Now, a cast can work for you and against you. You really need to do a tester. We're overemphasizing the front. That often can de-emphasize the back. So if you're stitching something that the front is important and the back can't be seen, this is an ideal little stitch for that. But sometimes you have difficulty with attaining a reasonable stitch because the 2.5mm iron was ideal. It needed a cast to emphasize that angle because the teeth are quite wide, very close together and shallow. Yes, I could achieve a nice saddle stitch, but I'm having to add a level of skill of knowing that that cast is necessary. The line above what we're doing here has no cast, it's just bog standard stitching. That's achievable by anybody starting out. It's the simple stitch and you don't need to know all the ins and outs of stitching to fight the iron, whereas this is achieving quite nicely. It's relative. It's a beginner's iron, but you can see for yourself it's performing. It's producing a quality stitch. I'm not going to get into the argument over stitching irons over pricking irons. There is a difference. There is a place for one, there is a place for the other. They don't necessarily do each other's job as well, or certainly for the stitching irons. It doesn't do everything that a pricking iron and awl can do, but visually it looks good enough. And this is not about making saddles, this is not about making bridles and harnesses and tack that have to be guaranteed to save somebody's life. Basically, if you have something failing on a saddle, the consequences can be extreme. That's not what this iron is pitched at. This iron is pitched at the hobbyist, the beginner, the intermediate leather worker, somebody who is producing handbags and wallets and belts and key fobs and all those lovely things that people want to buy, but stitched well. This fits that bracket perfectly. Look at that. Well, you look at that. I can't see it. I'm going to look at it in a minute. This is ideal. If that's where your skill... Well, that's not fair, because people with skill to make a handbag can make a lot of things. If that's where your product line is placed, then a tool like this would be ideal for you. And I have to say, let's have a look. I want to look first before I show you. That's not bad. It's a subtle difference, but that's actually quite lovely. And the back has flattened down a little, but not so much to make it vile. But that's the most important thing about these stitching lines, isn't it? The back's straight. There's no wavy lines. The all holes aren't up and down and all over the place, making you embarrassed to turn your item over. If somebody saw the back, well, that's just how the back is. We're going to look at that. Big hole, needs a lot of bashing to close up. You know, it's a 1.2mm by almost 3mm wide hole. That's a fair size to close up. Is it gripping the thread enough for a saddle? No, it's not. No, is it gripping the thread enough for a handbag, a wallet, a belt? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely it is. If you produced a bag with that level of stitching, I want to see how close I can get. Yeah. I mean, let's just look at the relativity of the size of that stitch. You can see that really closely, so you can scrutinise it. You can even zoom in or pause it and really have a close look and go, well, you know, stroke your beard moment. This, you know, oh, we'll do this or I'll do that. Let's just for a moment look at the relativity of it. So, there's the stitching that we've just done. How well can you see it now? That's 7 stitches per inch. If that was a wallet I was getting out, and you're quite close and looking at it, yeah? We're zooming in and we're being very analytical. If we took this, and at the moment I'm 2 foot away from the camera, if you're just waving that around and not being super analytical, that's the best you can see it. That looks fantastic. Bearing in mind, we are being super analytical by zooming in, extreme close-up, and it still looks really good. This is a cheap iron. Let me come back. So yeah, relatively, this is producing a good, high-quality stitch. You can learn to stitch with this tool, and you can take it into an intermediate level and be satisfied with that. That's a good looking stitch. If my students produce that, I'd be really happy. I'll produce that, I'm happy with it. There's nothing wrong with that at all. It's a nice stitch. The back has given a good account of itself. Now, on the crimson hide iron, I did the 2 sides. Pricked both sides and then stitched together. I think, to be fair, I'm going to do exactly the same here. I have another piece of leather, I will do the same, and we'll look at crossing those holes and seeing what it looks like pricked front and back. It is a Tandy tool. Love Tandy, hate Tandy, your choice. They touch more people around the world and bring them into leatherwork than anyone else. They now have a tool that has the ability to teach a beginner how to saddle stitch. That's not a bad thing. You don't need a stitch groover. A stitch groover will work against you. All this rubbish about it recessing under the surface of the leather. There are occasions where you have no choice but to put your stitching beneath the surface of the leather because of wear or friction. If that's the case, firstly look at your design. Those occasions are few and far between. When I see people put them on knife scabbards and stuff like that, no, you don't need it. It puts your stitching in a trough. The surface of your stitching, surface of your leather is the strongest piece of the leather. That's where the grain's the tightest. You cut that surface away, you're weakening the leather. You're making it to fail. If you're trying to saddle stitch in a groove, in a channel, whether that be a V or a U shape, you're causing the stitch to flatten, so it's not going to look good. You pull the tension tight enough, the stitching sits beneath the surface of the leather anyway. That doesn't sit on top, that sits beneath. Yeah, if I get my head out of the way, that might be a little bit better. So the tension has pulled the thread in. So don't spoil it by putting a groove down it, just do a line, do your row stitching, get the best from your stitching that you can, and this will help you achieve. I'm getting a little too enthusiastic here, I better calm down. Cookie and a cup of coffee. Let me do the 2 bits of leather, prick both sides and stitch them together so we can see how the front and the back can look the absolute pristine and best that it can. Now, this little tip you can do with most of the irons. It doesn't have to be this one at all, but it can present your item. I'm going to put one tooth over the edge of the leather, line it up, just mark those holes and then put it in the right place for carrying on. This little tip works even with pricking irons, except it gets a little bit more problematic because you are making sure that we've got the right end lining up. So we're going to start from this end, because you're putting the awl through it, you've got 2 holes crossing and the awl will work against one of the holes, whereas with these stitching irons the holes are already made, so that isn't so much of an issue. So what I have are 2 pieces of leather, one being the face piece, one being the back piece. Both are pricked up and then stitched together. How far off are we? Oh, that's absolutely bang on. So let's put those together in the clam and stitch them. Easy enough thing to line them up. Put a needle through the first hole of the top piece, the first hole of the back piece, the last hole of the top, the last hole of the back, and at which point then they're lined up. We can pop them in the clam and we're ready to stitch. Let me get some thread sorted and we'll go for it. So no different, John James number 4 needles, 0.6 bonded polyester thread. I will highlight at this moment that the guys at Tandy sent me these irons. I'm bearing in mind these irons have been sent to me for free to do this video, but the iron's not been messed with. I know that because it's identical to the one that the student brought when Tandy had no idea I was thinking of this. I've polished this. You've seen me do that, but bless their little cotton socks, they sent me some hemp. But what a colour! Who stitches in green? So we're not doing that. I'm not bending my perceptions around to be modern and cosmopolitan. I'm quite happy with my traditional yellow for brass, white for silver and black for everything else. So this will be an absolute standard stitch. No cast, no angles, nothing. Straightforward. We have the hole on this side pointing that way, and then we have the hole on the back pointing that way. So the holes only line up at the dead centre, and that is going to be a little bit of a struggle, lining the needle up to go through both holes. Take your time. The needles that I'm using, the John James number 4, they're blunt, they're not sharp needles. If you're making your holes, you don't want to be using sharp needles because you've already made a hole. A sharp needle will try and make a new hole. So you need a blunt needle, and when it's in there you can't find it, you move it round because it's blunt, it will slide until it gets to the point that you find the hole and then you're through. That's the idea of using a blunt needle with stitching. And that's pretty much it. It's a standard stitch. It takes a little longer because you're locating that hole, but you will see the results are worth it. hopefully, I'm saying that, I'm putting a lot of store again. You're looking at a result. So you can't quite see the back yet, but we're going to have a look at that. I'm fairly confident, let's put it that way. I think I've said pretty much everything about this iron that I can. The one resounding thing that is shining through about this iron, it does the job. It does do the job. It does the job well. It's well made. It's not a cheap, nasty piece of steel. Yes, I appreciate it's only stainless steel, but I don't know which stainless steel it is. I will never profess to be a metal expert. I have asked the question of Tandy, and if they do tell me which steel it is, it could be hardened. It could be case hardened. It could be all sorts. I know that there's all sorts of different stainless steel available. I don't know which one it is, but I haven't been able to bend it. I haven't been able to break it. The old Dixon irons were quite a mild steel and very easy to bend, especially the slimline ones. And you had to be really, really careful. You drop one on the floor, you'll bend a tooth. These don't bend. There's a ring to it. Whatever it be, it's a good solid piece of metal. It does the job, and it's very, very difficult to damage. It's also quite difficult to polish up. That says something about it. But they're available in every Tandy store now. They're available online from Tandy now. There is no 2-month waiting list. There is no 6 weeks waiting for postage. That's a big issue. I've pushed the Sawa. Sawa can't cope because of the video. They can't keep up with the orders. They are good irons. They're fantastic beginners irons, and they are cheap. 20 quid. You can't argue with that. These are 40 quid, but you can have it now. And this is the proof of the pudding. You make your mind up from what you're about to see here. 40 quid's a lot of money. Tandy, not happy with Tandy. Tandy's beneath me. I've got better than Tandy. I can do better work than Tandy tools can produce. Whatever your ethos, whatever you bend your perception round. No, I don't use Tandy tools. I don't use Tandy edge bevelers. I don't use Tandy creases. But there's a place for Tandy, and every student that comes in my workshop brings with them Tandy tools. It's where everybody starts. That's not a bad thing. But this is a Tandy tool. That's the front. That's the back. Let me tap it down. Give it a polish. See it in its best light. Which is the back? Which is the front? We could tell this is the face because that's where I finished stitching. But seriously, you start hiding stuff like that, doing that, and doing that, you're going to struggle working out which is which. That's a Tandy tool. That leather's mucky. You can't argue with that, can you? At all. And more importantly, and this is the most important thing, it's not stitched with horrible green thread. I like that. That's lovely. That's a good angle. That's a good stitch. It's a long hole, yes, I appreciate that. But if it's not on a saddle or a bridle or a piece of harness work, it's good enough. Make a handbag with that. That'd be gorgeous. Folks, you make your own mind up. That's the Tandy Craft Tool Pro. 3.5mm 8-tooth tool. Yeah. I have changed my mind. I wasn't that enamoured, by the 2.5mm. The quality, the construction, the cost, everything was fine, and it gave a good account of itself. But this is 7 stitches per inch, 3.5mm. That is a fantastic stitch to start with. It's a fantastic stitch to continue with. Everything looks good in 7 SPI. This will give you that. You can see that's what you can achieve with this. You can't argue with that. Folks, I know I've been a bit enthusiastic, but I am enthusiastic. I'm enthusiastic because it's a beginner's tool, and a beginner can achieve that. If a beginner can achieve that, they get enthusiastic and they keep going. If they keep going, the leather industry continues. If Tandy can feed that leather industry, and these new companies coming up, like Amy Rourke and Crimson Hides and Seiwo and Kyoshin Ellen, that is a good thing. I benefit from that. Every leather worker benefits from that. The more suppliers there are, because they're dipping, or have dipped dramatically, the more suppliers there are, the better it is for everybody, because there's more stuff being sold, so therefore it's cheaper. Folks, I hope you enjoy. I've rambled, I've ranted, I appreciate that. That's my prerogative. You don't have to watch the whole video, but I hope you enjoyed it. Take care. Thank you.